Awesome. Well, I'm so glad you booked this call because I want to hear all about your deal that you did with DealMachine. But first, like, I'd love to hear just like where you're from and like how long you've been in the game and everything.
Okay, so I'm actually in the Rhode Island market. Not from here at all. I live in South Carolina, but I was just up here for work, and I have been wanting to do wholesaling for a little while. Um, and I was like, oh, what the heck? Let me just get started, even though this isn't my home market at all. And so yeah, I think I got Deal Machine back in like March, and I wasn't really using it that much, just adding properties like here and there when I'm out, I saw a property, I would just add it. And then I want to say over like probably like the last 2 months is when I really just start, going out consistently and adding, meeting my setting a quota and trying to hit it pretty much like every day. But the funny thing is when the mail so the mailing that I got this deal from that I just closed Friday, um there was 120 leads in that. So I exported them and then sent them out, but I only had 120 leads in my deal machine. And I was like, man, I just want to like be consistent with my marketing. So I'm in the Wholesaling Inc. Cody Hoffline's Wholesaling Inc. program as well.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, so I had sent out mail to some other list and didn't get any like solid leads from it. And I was like, let me just send out uh this driving for dollars list and see what comes up, even though it's only like 120 leads or whatnot. So sent that out and I didn't get that many responses at first. I didn't, I got one. I think I got like one response, like, hey, don't mail me again or something like that.
It's
So
always the
I was like,
first round. They're like, take me off your list.
yeah, so like a month went by. So I mailed that out at the end of July
Okay.
and a month went by. So end of August, the seller calls me and of course I'm like, what the heck? I use like call rail for, like the tracking and stuff. And I'm like, I'm getting a call from the driving for dollars list. What? So yeah, the guy called me up. He's like, I have this property over here. It's been vacant for like uh forever, for like 8 or 10 years or something like that.
Wow.
And yeah, so he's like, and I remember it when I drove past it, and it was just like, I didn't really look at the property because it was covered by like brush and stuff. But I just looked over there and I said, man, that property over there is a mess. I'm adding that. So he calls and he says, so I'm like, what do you want for the property or whatnot? He says the assessed value is like 210 or something like that.
Okay.
He's like, assessed value is 210, it's in pretty rough shape. So I'll take 100 off. I'll ask for, 110. No, he said 220. That was the assessed value. And then he said, I'll take 100 off or whatever. So I was like, okay, I booked the appointment immediately. I was actually at work and I was like, yeah, well, I'm coming down there later today. Does that work for you? He's like, yeah, sure. Uh, come down or whatnot. So I didn't know like how bad the property was, but I knew for that area that that price was pretty good already. So I went down there. Uh, went on the appointment. There was actually some other investors there, I think, at the time, and there was like probably like three gentlemen. So I waited for them to finish up or whatever, and then the seller walked me through. Got to look at the property, and it was like really trash. Like,
You're like, no wonder
sit,
I couldn't see it over this brush. There's maybe a
yeah. So
reason.
everything was wrong with it. Everything was wrong with it. So I walked through the property, started talking to the seller, just building rapport. And so afterwards, we start discussing price, and he was saying that he wanted like 120, that was 100 less than the assessed value. I was like, man, this thing is in pretty rough shape, but he was like, I guess he did like handyman work or something like that before. So he was like one of those guys who were like, oh no, only thing you have to do is just like throw some drywall up right there and then just mud it, and then you're good to go. And I'm like, oh my God.
Because you're
So
sure that after 8 years, there's no foundational issues whatsoever.
right. So yeah, so we're talking price. I'm like, okay, so you want 120. I was like, what if I could do like 80, you know? And then he was like, well, the other guys already got you beat. I don't know if they actually had an offer in or not. But he was like, yeah, they already got you beat. Um, they have an offer at 90. So I was like, I don't know. I said, let me show like my contractor the pictures and get his feedback on it. And I'll get back with you with an offer. So I I'm trying to figure out like the time frame that all of this happened. So
Well, can I ask you, were you intimidated at all that there were other investors there at that same time? Like this is your first like big like maybe happening thing. Were you intimidated at all, or like how did you feel going up against? Bless you.
um no, I won't say intimidated. I felt like, okay, what I told the seller, I said, and I don't even know if this is like the right negotiation. I said, when I call back, like my offer is going to be the best that I can do. If you got to go with the other guys, just go with them. I said, when I have my contractor look at the pictures, the number I call back with, that's going to be my number.
I like
So
it. Confidence. You're just exuding confidence, and you're like, listen, if you want it, you want it. If you don't, I'll just go
yeah, I
with
didn't
another
know what I was doing, but it sounded good at the time. Anyway, so so that's what I told him. I left. A couple days later, I think I called him back, and I didn't have, so I have a friend that's a contractor. I don't have a contractor. I have a friend that's a contractor, and he looks at, like, I show him pictures and stuff, and then he kind of got back with me with like some soft numbers, kind of rough estimate. Obviously, he wasn't there at the property to see it. Um, and so when I uh when I got back with the seller, I was like, okay, so you know, it looks like, so they were at 90K. I said, so it looks like I could probably do like, 97, and then I threw out like 97 563 or something like that. And
That
then
is
he
such a
was
specific number.
right. And then because I told him like that it was gonna be like my max. And then I was like trying to do the whole like Chris Voss never split the difference thing, and then I just like jammed it up. But anyways, I went with it. I was like, yeah, that's gonna be my number. And then he was all right, let me get back with you. I don't know. I guess he was like, I want to check with these other guys, had some other guys interested. And then he said, he called me back and he was like, okay, they're not gonna beat your price. I was like, okay, I'll come down later and we could put an agreement together. So went down there, got the contract signed, and um, so after that, I sent it out, and I was thinking that the property, it was in pretty rough shape. Um, I was thinking that the property needed like 85K just off of like the rough estimate that my contractor friend gave me, and me looking at the property. Mind you, I'm a newbie, so I don't really know much about, you know, all the intricate details of, construction. But I was like, okay, this is like a rough estimate. Buyers, they're the professionals. They're going to come in and say,
Right.
oh, well, you're way off, or, or I can do it for less or whatever. So that wasn't really my focus. I was like, okay, I just got it under contract, I sent it out, and the houses in that area, this was a 4 bedroom, 1 bath. Um, Houses in that area go for like 300 and up. If it's, a 3-2, 4-2, anything like that, they're going to be like 350, um, 400. There's like a new development literally adjacent that abuts the property, that those houses back there are like 600, you know.
You
But this
literally
was
found the worst house in the best neighborhood.
literally, so that was literally like so I was watching YouTube videos and stuff, and they're like, go find the worst house in the best neighborhood. And I really like didn't know what I was doing. I was like, all right, let me just get out here and look in this particular neighborhood. It's a nicer neighborhood, older neighborhood, but still nice. And sure enough, that house was like, yeah, like probably like the worst house, down that in that neighborhood. So anyways, like the new development, factoring that in, like those houses back there, and they're newer, like probably like built 2010 and around that area. So kind of have to factor that in. But I was like, yeah, this house could probably go for, like 300 and up. So I got some buyers out. I sent it out, set an inspection, got some buyers out there, and so I had a couple people interested. Some of them didn't make it because of the time. I did it like on a Sunday afternoon. I don't know if that was a bad time or what, but some couldn't make it. It didn't go with their schedules, and then I ended up having like 4 people come out. No, 3, sorry. And they came out and looked at it, and they're like, "Oh my God, this thing is trash. Um, I don't know if it's 85. It looks more like a tear down." And then there was some stuff that the seller didn't exactly disclose to me before we signed the paperwork. And then afterwards, he was like, "Oh yeah, the basement flooded like, some years back, but I don't know if that'd be an issue." I'm like, oh God.
Oh no,
So
standing water is totally fine. It's great.
his theory was that he had pumped it out, so he got it out of there. But I'm like, still, it could have caused damage. It definitely did cause damage to like mechanical stuff. So that was something that I wasn't exactly like privy to. But I'm like, whatever. Let me just see what the buyers think. I'm just gonna, let them make their decision. So had 3 buyers come out, and yeah, they were basically like, oh yeah, this is a tear down. It's gonna be like a lot of work. So they were like, yeah, we might be interested. We'll get back with you. And that was I think that was Friday. No, I'm getting things so mixed up right now.
I mean, it's a long
So,
process, so you're fine.
right. So your mic is like a little fuzzy. I don't know. Um,
It might be my thing. Here, hold on. I'm trying new fancy things, and so I have to see if it actually works. Here, let me just use my computer mic, because that'll be better.
okay.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so go on. So that was, you got your timeline of your buyers came, and they said, just,
Yeah. Okay, so this is what happened. I sent it out and I said the inspection was Friday. Um, I didn't, I ended up running out of time to do it on Friday, so I had to reschedule. I rescheduled it for Sunday, and I had went out of town. My sister lives like one state over. I went to visit my sister, and so the inspection's on for Sunday. I have a couple people saying that I'm coming out, and a buyer calls me Saturday morning at 8 a.m. and I didn't have real good service up there. So I'm like, what is this guy? What does he want? Like he calls me at 8 a.m. I missed the call, it goes to voicemail. He's like, hey man, if you want to sell that property, get back with me. So I'm like, all right, let me go drive down the road, find some service, and get back with this guy. So he's texting me like, hey, call me about that deal, 8 a.m. Saturday. Like, hey, if you want to sell that deal, like, get back with me. I'm like, all right, let me go see what this guy wants. So I call him, and he's like, hey, do you still have that deal down there? I said, yeah. He's like, well, I want to buy it. I have a check in hand right now. Like I can close on this thing today. And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, okay, well, I'm having an inspection tomorrow, Sunday, if you want to come out and look at it. He said, I don't want to look at it. I don't need to look at it. I'm ready to close on it. Like right now, I'll give you your asking price and I'm ready to close. And after I found out who the guy was, he runs like a pretty big construction company up here, and he does a lot of work in that area. So
he knew the
he just,
value. He knew the value of that property.
yeah, yeah, he knew what a lot of other people didn't and probably don't. So, and he said, I have like, 10 flips going on in that same area right now. I don't need to look at the house. I don't need to inspect it. I'm not coming out to the inspection. I'm just gonna knock it down. I just need to know if I can knock it down and that I can build on it. Once it's gone, pretty much. So I was like, let me see. This is before, mind you, this is before I got the feedback from the other buyers.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's why I said I was kind of getting things a little bit messed up in the timeline. But so we had the inspection, then the other buyers came out and they were like, okay, this is a tear down or whatever. They pretty much weren't interested. So I got back with the other guy. I said, all right, look, okay, if you can close on this, like, as fast as you say you can, then I'm gonna go with you pretty much. So he was like, all right. So so I sent him over the assignment, and he was like, I was under the impression that you kind of have to, as the wholesaler, you kind of have to dictate like the deal and where it closes and a closing attorney and stuff like that, which kind of might have been a newbie mistake. But then I asked around and they were like, oh no, buyers normally want to close with their closing attorney. because they get discounts or whatever the case is. So after like a pretty drawn out process, I think it might have been like a week, just going back and forth. His his attorney, wanting to change things, in the assignment, and then wanted us to change things in the actual contract. So I had to go back to the seller and make like an addendum to some things that his attorney wanted changed. So I went and did that. After we did all that, came back that they still haven't signed the assignment. This is going on for like a week now. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy, when he called me up, he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to make this super easy. It's going to be a smooth transaction. I have like the cash in hand. I can close on this thing like tomorrow, all this stuff. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a hassle. So after figuring out that it's not really a big deal for them to close with because I was given like a little bit of pushback too, because, we were going in and making amendments to the contract and giving these guys everything that they wanted basically. And I was like, okay, I'm supposed to like dictate this deal or whatnot. And then like my closing attorney is like, okay, that, if they want to close with them, that's fine, just let them do that pretty much. So after that, about a week later, we got the assignment signed, and it took forever to get title back. It took like 3 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, and what the closing attorney was saying, and the title company, because it's within like the same office here, they were saying that it's due to like what is it? Refinancing, like all of the homeowners refinancing. So title companies are backed up. And so it took forever. It took like 3 weeks to get that back. And mind you, so I put a closing date for 45 days out, because I was figuring that, things are going to take a little bit longer with the whole COVID situation.
That's smart.
So, and I needed it because.
Well, you got 3 weeks with this, and then a week, and then my gosh, you just keep stacking on time with like this thing.
Right. Look, so it took forever, down to like the last minute. So we get the title back after 3 weeks of just sitting there waiting, and the closing attorney isn't like telling me anything. They're just like, whenever we get it pretty much. So get the title back, and of course the seller said that the title is clean. We get it back, and there's like liens on the title.
Oh my gosh.
So there's a state tax lien, and there's a county lien on the property, because it's an older property. It had a cesspool. So there was like something to where if you didn't get an updated septic, they'll fine you like $500 a day for, and mind you, this thing has been out of compliance for 10 years. So,
oh my gosh.
So we get the title back, and there's all these things. There's the tax lien, a $500 a day fine for like the last 10 years or whatever.
Oh my God.
So I'm thinking like this isn't even a deal anymore. I'm like, oh my God, it's just done. So I talked to the buyer. I called the buyer up, or no, he called me. He said, look, there's my closing attorney is telling me that they got title back and there's all these liens on it. And so he's like, so for the state tax lien, the seller's gonna take care of that, right? I'm like, yeah, he told me that the title was clean, so that's his responsibility, pretty much. So he said, all right, so look, he's the one that told me about the fine for the cesspool. He said it was like $500 a day. He said, look, I'll call the county. I know the guy. You know, I do business down there. You know, basically he does all his business down there for the most part. You know,
Okay.
like he said he had like 10 flips going on. He said, look, I know the guy. I was like, all right. He said, I'll get it cleared up. So he gets them to, waive all of those fees for the cesspool, um, with consideration that he's gonna, go in and replace it and do a proper septic and stuff.
That seller is
Um,
so lucky.
yeah, because it literally wouldn't have been a deal if this particular buyer, who's like a big developer, if he didn't like have connections at like the county office to get
Right.
that removed. So after that, I was like, okay, cool, that works. And then he ended up getting the the state tax lien. He ended up finding out what that was, and then the payment was just going to come out of his proceeds from the transaction. And so after that, I'm trying to think because I know there was something else that came up. This was not the end of it.
First, I feel like this was the best first deal for you because now you're just like, bring it on. Like,
Yeah, like every problem that could have came up like presented itself. Um, so after that, he's like, okay, so we get both of those things taken care of, and we're ready to close, right? So we're like, all right, we're ready to close. On the day that it was supposed to close, I think it was like a week before the contract expires.
oh my,
Um,
I'm on the edge of my seat right now.
the day it was supposed to close, I forgot what it was, but I think so both of the lawyer offices, they were saying like, oh, we're waiting on the other guy, we're waiting on the other guy, we sent over paperwork, we're waiting for them to bring it in, we're waiting for them to drop it off, we're waiting for this to get signed. So that went on for like 3 days, and then finally they're like, okay, we're ready to close. The seller has to come up here and sign the disclosure documents. So the seller goes up there, I'm talking to him, and he's like, okay, I'm on my way up there to sign them. Um, and that was on like a Tuesday or Wednesday. The contract expires on that Saturday. He's like, yeah, I'm on my way up there to sign them. And then I never heard anything back. So I'm under the impression that he signed the paperwork and it's on the buyer now. So I called the buyer like, hey, yeah, what's up? What's going on? Just checking in to see where we stand with the closing. He's like, oh, we're still waiting on that paperwork from the seller. When he went up there to sign it, he didn't sign like one piece of paper or something. So he has to go back up there.
Oh my
He
God.
has to go back up there to sign it. So so then Wednesday came, I guess the seller went back up there, signed it, and then the deal closed at like the end of the day on Thursday. But so their office was closed, so I had to go pick up my check on Friday. But literally, that was October 9th, and the contract was expiring on the 10th. That was when it expired.
So you were
So
probably just like sweating bullets of like, is this going to happen?
yeah, I was literally like, I was kind of harassing like my closing attorney that I use about like the whole process and everything. And I'm pretty sure like I was getting on her nerves because this was like my first deal and I didn't know how things went. And so I would just call her up like, okay, what happens now? And she's like, look, you have the easiest job. You just sit back and wait until closing and then you go get your check. And I'm like, she had to tell me that like 5 times before it really set in with me because I'm like trying to call the buyer, the seller, the closing attorney, the buyer's attorney, like what's going on? You know, what can I do to like speed this up? And I was probably a little bit more involved than I needed to be, but I was like, man, maybe if I didn't like push things along, it might have, you know, been
It
drawn
might
out for
not
one more
actually
day and
happen.
then then the deal is lost, you know?
So can I ask you how much your assignment fee was?
So put it under contract for 97,563, I want to say, or six, something, whatever. Anyways, so I sold it for 110. So 12,000 and some change, like 12 12,300 and something. I can't remember the exact amount,
Love it. That's
but
amazing.
yeah, I was super happy when the deal finally closed after going through all
You were,
that.
you were like, drinks on me. I promise. Like, this is so much right now. You're probably like, I can sleep now. There's going to be no
Yeah,
anxiety of there's one more paper he has to sign.
right. No, I was literally like, I was telling my wife like the day. So this was like Thursday. I was telling my wife, I'm like, man, if they don't get this thing closed, you know, tomorrow, then, you know, they're not open for business on Saturday, then it's, you know, the contract's going to expire. And as I was like, this was at the end of the day, Thursday. So Thursday afternoon, I was literally having this conversation with her, like, man, this deal might be lost, blah, blah, blah. And I checked my phone and there was an email from the title company, hey, you can come pick your check up tomorrow. And I was like,
Oh my gosh. The
I
relief.
was so happy.
I was going to say the relief that had to have just like swept over you when you read that was probably like, ah.
Yeah, yeah, it was, oh man.
Okay, so my question to you is, since that was your first deal, like what, for someone who is like starting out in this and everything, and they're still waiting for their first deal, what advice would you give them that you wish you would have had, like at the beginning of that, like the whole process?
Um, at the beginning of I would say my advice would be, um, if you're like thinking about getting started and you only have like 120 leads in your DealMachine app, to send them out. Like send out mail. I really wish I got started in this like when I first learned about it back in 2018. But it just like didn't work for me, and I was like making excuses like, oh, I'm on the road traveling for work and I might not have time, and this isn't even like my home market, and blah blah blah. And I wish I really just got started back then. But
Hey, but
yeah,
you
my
did
advice would be to just get started, you know, just start taking steps. Um,
what
because
what are you doing now? Like, do you have quotas now of like how many properties you're putting in or anything like that?
um I try to do like 50 a day,
Nice.
and you know, just depending on the area that I'm in, I can do like 100. I might get a little bit less. But yeah, I think the most I've added, excuse me, in one day is like 120,
Oh my
I
gosh,
think.
I love.
But yeah, sometimes I get more, sometimes I get a little bit less, but I try to do 50.
So are you just doing mail marketing then? Because it sounds like you're super busy. It doesn't sound like you can do cold calling all the time.
No, so I couldn't do cold calling. I tried it, like, but I would get off work, and I would have to choose between driving for dollars or cold calling, and I didn't really like cold calling, so I wasn't
I feel you
motivated to
on that.
do it. I wasn't motivated to do it, so I was like, oh man. I actually got a virtual assistant to help with like some of the cold calling and like administrative stuff, scrubbing lists and all of that stuff that kind of just takes a bunch of time, and that I might not, you know, that takes me away from doing, stuff that will actually like bring in revenue, like talking to sellers or getting properties, added to the deal machine.
I love it. Well, I'm so excited for you because it sounds like this isn't going to be the last I hear from you about getting deals. Hopefully it doesn't go as like crazy as this one.
Oh no, hopefully not. Like that was, I mean, I'm glad I experienced it because, like you said, now I know kind of what the hurdles are. And I know, every deal isn't going to be like easy
Right.
at all. So I'm glad I experienced that. At the end of the day, we got to closing, and, you know, the seller got money for a property that's been sitting vacant for 10 years. The buyer is going to put something nice up there and probably make a ton of money, I'm sure. And I got my assignment fee. So everybody wins.
Win, win, win. I like it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. And again, congratulations. I just hope that the deals following just overflow. And with how many leads you're putting in now, like those are going to start coming in like hotcakes.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for it. Like I said, I pretty much just got started doing like consistently, like trying to get like 50 and then just really building up that pipeline. But yeah, it's definitely like the best lead source for me, by far, the Deal Machine app, because it's kind of saturated and there's a lot of competition. So if the competition isn't out there every day like you hitting the streets and driving, adding properties, then you're gonna get ones that they're not. And
And and you did. You got one that they did not get. So that's like
yeah.
huge. I love it. And I just applaud you at the hustle that you're having, especially since you're also working, it sounds like another full-time job on top of this. So
Hmm.
I give you so much kudos, and please let me know when you close your next one. I want to hear
All
all
right, yeah.
about it.
Okay,
So good
thanks.
to
Yeah,
meet you.
thanks for having me. Good to meet you too.
All right, bye.